Thank you, John and Michael. Holy cow. I am so excited that Dr. J. Goosby Smith is presenting next. And I'm very grateful to my friend Dr. Nicole Forsgren, who introduced me to her book, Beyond Inclusion, Work-Life, Interconnectedness, Energy, and Resilience in Organizations 3 years ago. In preparation for this presentation, I reread her book and I was utterly blown away by it because I now recognize so much more clearly what a beautiful and superb book this is, about how individuals help teams achieve greatness when they feel included. As part of her research, she conducted an incredible study of over 7,000 respondents to better understand the elements that make up inclusion. My takeaway? How utterly absurd it is that any team can achieve greatness if everyone doesn't feel energized, engaged, and feels included as part of the team. I asked her to teach us about what the elements of great teams are based on her years of research in the space. You heard the notion of leading like a gardener from the Crossley team on day one, and Dr. Smith expounds upon this even further. Dr. Smith is driven by the call to increase human thriving in the workplace. She specializes in workplace inclusion with emphasis on teams, higher education, veterans, and workplace spirituality and religion. She was awarded an Office of Naval Research Faculty Summer Fellowship to research barriers to inclusion for Latina and Latino service members. Dr. Smith is Assistant Provost for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Associate Professor of Management, Baker School of Business, and Director of the Citadel's Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Center. Here's Dr. Smith.
Hello, thank you so much for attending this session. Today we're going to talk about creating inclusive teams and organizations. Our agenda, I'll introduce myself briefly and give you a little bit of an overview, which I'm doing now. And then we'll talk about defining variables. We'll talk about the ingredients of inclusive organizations and what you can do next. This is a little bit about me. I've been around and currently I'm at the Citadel, as Jean said earlier. And so these are some of the things that I care quite a bit about. I love to travel and I can't wait till I can do that. So the big picture, most of you all are in technologies. And so you know that if you don't define the variables clearly, you won't be able to make the changes you want, or at least the changes you want won't be that predictable. So we're going to talk about 4 different variables during this presentation: diversity, equality, equity, and inclusion. So we're going to use the metaphor of a garden, and I want you to think about your organization as a garden or your team as a garden. And if you're a leader, if you do any type of hiring, you're a planter, you're the gardener, you're someone who plants flowers and fruit into the garden. And of course, the reason you're planting anything in your garden is because you want it to bear fruit. So this is a picture of a garden that's very diverse. You can see the shrubs in the background and the trees, but it's not very inclusive because these yellow flowers are not thriving here. So inclusive is a characteristic of the whole garden, okay? And so if you're a good gardener, you try to figure out why my yellow flowers aren't growing. Here's a picture of a very inclusive, but not very diverse garden. Anytime you have multiple flowers, anytime you have multiple people, the group is always diverse. It's just a matter of how diverse. So this garden is diverse. These tulips are various heights. The hyacinths are various heights and girth. And so we say it's not a very diverse garden. On the other hand, I hope you haven't been in organizations like this. This is a not very diverse garden, and it's not very inclusive. Looks like very similar plants are just all dying together on the vine. This, however, is the goal to me. These are very diverse gardens that are also very inclusive. They're very diverse because you have different types of plants here, and they're very inclusive because all of the plants seem to be doing well. So this is what we want in organizations. We want a wide variety of people bearing different types of fruit, functioning excellently, and being included. So bottom line, inclusion and diversity are different. I know a lot of times you hear diversity and inclusion, diversity and inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion. and they lump them together like they're twins or triplets. But inclusion and diversity are different variables. Inclusion has to do with the conditions that lead to the plants bearing fruit. Diversity has to do with the different types of plants. And so an organization can be minimally diverse or highly diverse. At the same time, it can be minimally inclusive or highly inclusive. So when you think about your workplace, think about both of those things. I'll tell you this, if I had a choice of working in an organization that was very diverse but not inclusive, or working in an organization where I'm the only type of flower of my kind, but it's an inclusive organization, I'll choose the inclusive organization hands down, because I know that's going to be a place where I'll be able to bear fruit. So let's talk a little bit about equality. Using this garden metaphor, equality is giving the same amount of water, the same amount of shade, the same amount of everything to each plant. Now, I want you to think about this. Some of you might be gardeners, and you know where I'm going with this. If you've planted all these different types of vegetables and trees and fruits and flowers, and you give each one the exact same amount of sun, same amount of water, same amount of shade, what's going to happen? Exactly. You're going to systematically kill some of these flowers. This summer, I have killed 3.5 zucchini plants. One is hanging in here, giving me a second chance. And so I'm doing something wrong with the zucchini plant. And any gardener will tell you that if one of your plants isn't thriving, you go back to the garden store and you say, hey, my green peppers are growing well, but my zucchini are failing, and you find out what the zucchini needs. That means that you'd realize that your equality